When he fell in love with his bodyguard. Taekook fan fiction love story. Part 3 of 3. Let's start. The room was too white, too still. Beeping monitors were the only sound interrupting the silence inside the intensive care unit. Jungkook lay motionless on the hospital bed. Thick gauze bandaged across his abdomen and chest. Tubes and machines attached to his arms and face. The normally sharp and imposing bodyguard now looked fragile, like a broken soldier in a war no one had asked him to fight. His wounds were deep. The doctors had said it was a miracle he even made it here alive. But the true miracle, Taehyung believed, would be if Jungkook opened his eyes again. Taehyung sat on the edge of the chair, slouched forward with trembling hands clutched tightly in his lap. His eyes were swollen from crying, lips bitten raw from trying to muffle his sobs in the sterile silence of the ICU. He hadn't left Jungkook's side since the ambulance brought him in. For nearly 2 days, he hadn't eaten, hadn't slept, and refused every attempt from nurses or family to make him leave the room. His voice cracked as he whispered again, "Please wake up." The machines continued their slow, methodical beeping. Oxygen hissed softly through the tube feeding into Jungkook's nose. There was no reply, not a twitch, not even the flutter of an eyelash. "I'm sorry," Taehyung choked, pressing his forehead to Jungkook's limp hand. "This is all my fault. If I hadn't been so reckless, if I hadn't snuck out that night, if I hadn't..." His breath hitched. "I didn't know what it meant to be protected until I almost lost you." Tears fell freely now, soaking into Jungkook's hand. Taehyung didn't care how pathetic he looked. Nothing else mattered except the man lying silent in that bed. The man who had thrown himself between death and Taehyung without hesitation. Outside the room, behind the glass, Kim Mina stood silently, arms crossed, face unreadable. Namjoon approached him quietly, having just returned from speaking with the lead surgeon. "They said his vitals are stable, but the coma could last days, weeks, or..." He hesitated. "Longer." Kim Mina didn't respond at first. His jaw clenched, the wrinkle between his brows carved deep. Namjoon knew his father too well. That blank expression wasn't coldness, it was guilt. The weight of nearly losing his son, and knowing that the man who saved him was the same one he'd thrown away like a servant who'd overstepped. "He would have died," Namjoon said quietly, "if Jungkook wasn't there." Mina finally spoke, voice low and clipped. "I know. Then why did you?" "Because I'm his father." His voice cracked only barely. "Because I thought I was protecting him by keeping that man away. And in doing so, I almost let my son get killed." A long silence. Inside the room, Taehyung had moved to the bed now. His arms were wrapped gently around Jungkook's unresponsive body, careful of the wires and bandages. "You said you'd never let anyone touch me," he whispered. "That I'd be safe, as long as you were around." He let out a laugh, bitter and broken. "You idiot. Why did you take that bullet for me?" The monitors beeped on, steady, unchanged. "I'm not me without you, Jungkook." Taehyung sobbed, burying his face against Jungkook's shoulder. "You made me feel alive. You looked at me like I wasn't a spoiled mafia prince. Just someone worth loving. Someone worth protecting." He lifted his tear-stained face. I need you to come back. I need you to yell at me again for sneaking out. I need your cold eyes when you say, "Don't test me, Kim Taehyung." I need your hand at my back when we walk through crowds. Way you look at me like I'm your whole damn world. Jungkook didn't move. The beeping didn't change. But Taehyung didn't let go. Kim Mina watched his youngest son fall apart through the glass. He'd built empires, commanded armies of men, controlled weapons and territories most could never dream of. But this moment, he had no power here. Just a father watching the consequences of his fear, and a son loving someone with every breath of his soul. And inside, behind those machines and wires, Jungkook still fought, still bled, still held onto the echo of a vow whispered once in silence. I'll protect you until my last breath. And he hadn't run out yet. The third morning came. Soft rays of sunlight filtered through the blinds of the hospital window. The room remained quiet, except for the soft hum of machines that had now become part of Taehyung's daily rhythm. Beep, 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 steady, like the heartbeat of a promise not yet broken. Taehyung hadn't left Jungkook's side. He was curled up in the recliner next to the bed, one hand laced tightly with Jungkook's. His head rested on the edge of the mattress, face flushed from crying in his sleep. He had whispered countless things to the unconscious man. Confessions, apologies, pleas, all laced with the same desperate hope. And then, a twitch. It was subtle. So small that it could have been a flinch from a dream. But Taehyung felt it. His head shot up. Jungkook. The hand he held twitched again. Jungkook, please, look at me. Please. Taehyung climbed onto the bed, hovering above him with trembling hands. And then, a soft groan. His eyes slowly fluttered open, dazed, unfocused. His lips parted slightly as he struggled to breathe through the dryness of his throat. Water? Taehyung whispered to the nurse who had just walked in, heart pounding wildly. The nurse gasped. He's awake. Taehyung turned back to him, eyes already filling with tears. Jungkook. It's me. I'm here. You came back. Jungkook blinked sluggishly, as if dragging himself out from underwater. His lips moved hoarse and cracked. Taehyung broke. His face crumpled as he lowered himself gently to kiss Jungkook's forehead, cheeks, hands. Every inch of him he could reach without hurting him. You stupid, stubborn bastard, he sobbed. You came back. You really came back to me. Jungkook's brows furrowed faintly. His voice rasped, barely audible. Did I protect you? Taehyung pressed his forehead against Jungkook's. Yes, you did. You took a bullet for me. You nearly died for me. But I swear on my life, you will never do that again. His voice cracked with raw emotion. Because if you die, I die too. Jungkook's eyes slowly focused, and for the first time, he truly saw Taehyung. His disheveled hair, puffy eyes, pale skin, and yet he was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Don't cry, Jungkook whispered. Taehyung let out a short, broken laugh through his tears. Too late. The door opened. Kim Mina entered slowly, silent, stern. Jungkook's gaze shifted to him, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. But Mina didn't speak. Instead, he walked to the foot of the bed. and looked at the man who had nearly given his life for his son. "I was wrong," Mina said at last. Taehyung lifted his head in surprise. "I made a grave mistake separating you two. You've proven where your loyalty lies, Jungkook." His voice, usually sharp and commanding, now carried a heavy sincerity. "You are not just a bodyguard. You're the man my son loves." Jungkook stared at him, chest rising with weak, shallow breaths. "I can't undo what I've done," Mina continued. "But from this moment forward, I won't stand in your way." Taehyung reached for Jungkook's hand again and kissed his knuckles. "You hear that? No more hiding. No more secrets. You're mine, and I'm yours." Jungkook smiled faintly. It was so small, barely a curve of his lips, but it was real. "You're such a handful," he croaked. Taehyung grinned through his tears. "And you're in love with every part of me." Jungkook's hand tightened just slightly around his. "Damn right I am." A week later, Jungkook was discharged into a private villa owned by the Kim family. Taehyung refused to let any other caretaker touch him, tending to him personally, feeding him, helping him bathe, dressing his wounds with gentle fingers and tearful eyes. The nights were the hardest. Taehyung would lie beside Jungkook on the large bed, not daring to press too close for fear of hurting him. But sometimes, Jungkook would wake with a gasp. Flashes of blood, of screaming, of pain still haunting him. And Taehyung would pull him close, whispering, "You're safe now. You're home." They didn't make love right away. It wasn't about lust. Not yet. It was about healing. About forehead kisses. About holding hands in silence. About falling asleep with Jungkook's head on Taehyung's chest, listening to the steady heartbeat that had almost been taken away. The soft crackle of the fireplace was the only sound in the dimly lit bedroom. Shadows flickered across the walls, dancing like ghosts of the pain they had just left behind. Jungkook stood quietly by the window, freshly discharged from the hospital just a few days ago. His body still ached, bandages hidden beneath the loose black shirt he wore, but none of it compared to the ache he carried inside, the need for the man curled up on his bed. Taehyung. Taehyung, with his long legs pulled to his chest, his head resting against the plush pillow Jungkook had laid for him, eyes closed but not asleep. He was waiting, breathing shallow, heart hammering, wanting the one thing he had been deprived of for far too long. Jungkook turned, stepping slowly toward him. The floor creaked under his weight, and Taehyung's eyes opened immediately, locking onto him. "Does it still hurt?" Taehyung whispered, voice fragile like a prayer. Jungkook's answer came not in words, but in the way his hand reached out and cradled Taehyung's cheek, thumb brushing over soft skin. "Only when you're not touching me." Taehyung exhaled shakily, and that was all Jungkook needed. He climbed onto the bed slowly, gently, careful with his healing body, but hunger burned behind his eyes. Taehyung met him halfway, pressing their lips together in a kiss that was deep, slow, and full of desperation. Not rushed. This wasn't the first time they kissed, but it felt like the first time they breathed. Jungkook's hands slid into Taehyung's hair, tugging just enough to make the younger man gasp into his mouth. "I missed this," Jungkook growled against his lips. "Missed you. The way you fall apart for me." Taehyung's skin burned as Jungkook's lips dragged down to his jaw, then to his throat, kissing and nipping with a controlled hunger. "Then take me," he whispered. "Show me I'm yours again." Clothes came off slowly, painfully slowly, like unwrapping something sacred. Jungkook took his time exploring the skin he had almost lost forever. His fingers trailed down Taehyung's chest, lips following the path, licking every inch like he was reclaiming it. Taehyung moaned, back arching when Jungkook's warm mouth descended lower, placing teasing kisses over his abdomen. "You're torturing me," he breathed, fingers tangled in Jungkook's hair. "I've dreamed of this," Jungkook murmured, his voice husky, low. "You," moaning under me, shaking from my touch. "No one else will ever see you like this, Taehyung. You're mine, and I'll always be." Taehyung panted, reaching up to pull him back into a kiss, mouths crashing, teeth clashing, tongues tangling with a fire that only near death could ignite. When Jungkook finally slid inside him, it was slow, deliberate, as if he was memorizing how it felt to be home again. Taehyung cried out, clinging to him, whispering his name like a lifeline. "Jungkook, Jungkook, I love you. I love you. I'd take a bullet for you again," Jungkook whispered against his ear, voice breaking as he began to move. "I'd die if it meant you'd live." Their bodies moved together in perfect rhythm, the room echoing with the sounds of breathless moans, soft gasps, and desperate whispers. Jungkook's hands never stopped touching, gripping Taehyung's hips, fingers lacing with his, palm brushing his cheek as he drove deeper, harder, but always tender. "I need you," Taehyung cried out. "Don't ever leave me again." "I'll never go," Jungkook swore, thrusts slowing, deepening. "Not even death can take me from you." And when they both finally shattered, tangled together, crying each other's names, their hearts exploding in bliss, it wasn't just wrecking, it was healing, it was a homecoming. Afterward, they lay breathless, tangled in the sheets, Jungkook's fingers brushing sweat-soaked strands from Taehyung's face. "You're beautiful when you're ruined," Jungkook murmured. Taehyung smiled sleepily. "Then ruin me every night." For days, Kim Mina watched in silence. He watched how Taehyung looked at Jungkook, even when Jungkook wasn't looking. He watched how Jungkook wrapped a protective arm around his son, how Taehyung reached out unconsciously in his sleep, fingers searching for Jungkook's chest like a child needing warmth. He saw the laughter, the glances, the silent conversations spoken through eyes only soulmates understood. And suddenly, Kim Mina understood something terrifying and beautiful at once. Taehyung would never stop loving Jungkook, even if he begged, even if he tore the world apart, even if he disowned him. Even if Jungkook had been inches from death, he had fought it. Mina had tried to break them apart, terrified of the future, of losing his only son to a man whose life was soaked in danger and blood. But watching Taehyung light up again, seeing his son come back to life only in Jungkook's arms, broke something inside him. So, on a rainy afternoon, as Jungkook helped Taehyung set the table, Kim Mina stood in the doorway. "I was wrong," he said, simply. The couple turned, surprised. "You too," his voice cracked. "I've seen it now. You were never just in love. You belong to each other." Taehyung's eyes flooded with tears. Jungkook blinked, stunned. Kim Mina approached Jungkook slowly and looked him in the eye. You protected him when I couldn't. You almost died for him. I can't ask for a better man to take care of my son. He reached out and placed Taehyung's hand into Jungkook's. You have my blessing. Taehyung sobbed. Jungkook bowed his head, his voice choked. Thank you, sir. But Taehyung didn't wait. He jumped into his father's arms, crying like a child. And a month later, they married. The wedding day, a seaside estate, pale pink roses everywhere. A gentle wind rustled the silk curtains draped over the white arch where Jungkook stood in an all-black tailored suit. His hair slicked back, eyes never leaving the aisle. And then came Taehyung, a vision in cream and lace, his cheeks flushed, his eyes shining with love, lips trembling with the weight of 1,000 emotions. Jungkook's hands were shaking as he took Taehyung's. You're breathtaking, he whispered. You're mine now, Taehyung smiled. I always was. The vows were simple. Jungkook vowed to protect him. Taehyung vowed to wait for him, even in another life. They didn't wait for midnight. The moment the door to the honeymoon suite closed behind them, Jungkook shoved Taehyung against it, hands gripping his thighs, mouth devouring his husband's lips like a man starved. Still want me to ruin you every night? He rasped, voice heavy with need. Please, Taehyung moaned, dragging his fingers through Jungkook's hair. Make me forget everything except your name. Jungkook threw him onto the bed, ripping open his own shirt, muscles flexing as he crawled over Taehyung like a predator. His mouth trailed down Taehyung's neck, biting and sucking marks into his collarbone. Taehyung writhed beneath him. Jungkook, don't tease. I'm not teasing, Jungkook growled. I'm claiming what's mine. He undressed him slowly, every inch of skin kissed, bitten, worshipped. He licked a stripe down Taehyung's chest, circled his nipples with his tongue until the boy was shaking, moaning, begging. When he reached between Taehyung's thighs, he licked there too, slow, relentless, tongue pushing him to the brink. Please, please, Taehyung gasped, writhing, clutching the sheets. Turn over, Jungkook whispered darkly. Taehyung obeyed instantly, ass high, face flushed into the pillow. Jungkook kissed the curve of his lower back before slowly sliding into him, deep, hard, making Taehyung cry out. He didn't hold back. Months of frustration, passion, near death, pain. All of it poured into each deep thrust. Jungkook gripped Taehyung's hips and pounded into him mercilessly, whispering filth into his ear. You like being my wife now, huh? Yes, yes. I'm yours, only yours, No one else gets to see you like this. Hear you scream like this. Taehyung cried out, body convulsing as Jungkook reached around and stroked him in rhythm with each hard thrust. Jungkook, I'm. Come for me, Jungkook growled. And Taehyung did hard, legs trembling, voice cracking as he moaned Jungkook's name. Jungkook followed soon after, slamming deep and groaning against Taehyung's back as he came inside him. They collapsed together, bodies sticky, hearts racing. Jungkook nuzzled into Taehyung's neck, placing soft kisses over the red marks. I'll love you in every life, he whispered. Taehyung smiled sleepily. Then get ready. I'm not letting you rest tonight. Jungkook grinned wickedly. Challenge accepted. The end. Hope you enjoyed this story. I guess it was a hot ending. Lots of you asked me to make hot taekook stories. I did.